Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it.
Hey, I often get asked, what would I do differently? And it's easy for me to say, well, I wouldn't do anything differently, right? Because I enjoy my life. I like where I'm at. I feel blessed for everything I've been able to accomplish, everything I've been given. I honestly don't know if I would change it. But there's some things where I look back and say, could I have done things differently? Sure. Maybe do I want to change where I'm at today? No, not necessarily. But let's dig in and I want to give you advice for where I am today and where maybe I could have seen advantages if I took the route that I did. So people always ask me, what would you do differently? I hear that a lot, and I hear it from people all the time, to different people that have had, multitude of different types of successes. And some of the things that I would say is, look, if those of you who don't know my story real quickly, I started doing single family fix and flips and buying single family duplexes up to 4-unit buildings. Did that for a long time. I did a lot of flips. I bought a lot of 1 to 4 family properties. Bought some various different types of real estate. I had a ski resort at one time. Bought a mobile home park. Flipped that. Bought some small apartments. Flipped those, and then I worked my way up from buying like 10 to 20 unit buildings to now buying 200 plus unit buildings, doing multifamily syndication, and always value add the whole time. So what would I do though along that path differently? First of all, I would make sure I'm building relationships at all times. One of the things that I did is I didn't really talk about what I did. I didn't think relationships were all that essential, right? I thought, I needed to know the people I needed to know. And that was about it. I didn't focus on building new relationships. I didn't really focus on building relationships as much as I really should have. So I didn't think they were as important as what I really feel like they are right now. Okay, so I would be building relationships. I'd be open to giving more. I'd be open to receiving more. I'd be open to different types of partnerships that might be advantageous. Just more open and more purposeful about building good relationships. So that's number one. Number two, I would put myself out there more too. So that kind of goes with number one. But number two is I'd put myself out there more. When somebody would say, "Hey, what do you do?" I would say, "Well, I'm a real estate investor." And they say, "Oh, you're a realtor. That's cool." And I'd say, "Yeah, sure. That sounds good." And that's honestly basically how I would respond. I didn't tell them, well, yeah, granted, I do have my real estate license, but I wouldn't expand upon it. I wouldn't say, well, I'm actually a real estate investor. I'm buying properties and this is what I do. I would just kind of put my head down and go, yeah, that's cool, and move on. And not that I want to just always talk about myself, right? Not that that's, I think, important when you're in a conversation, because it's more about what you give than what you take. How much are you listening to them versus how much you're talking about yourself. You want to be talking about them. You want to be listening to them. But I would be more open to talking about, myself and talking about what I do, and just be a little more open about that. The next thing I would say I would do, and those are two, by the way, those are two really important things. And I think the first two that I mentioned are the biggest things that I did that I wish I would have maybe done differently. And I don't want to say I wish I would have, because I don't regret anything. But looking back and giving somebody advice moving forward, those are two massive areas where I think you can do better than what I did, and you'll see that success quicker and differently. The other thing is, even though you're building those relationships, make sure you trust but verify, right, who you're working with. Make sure you work with very, very reputable people, and make sure you work with people that have very similar goals, alignments, and ethics as you do, because that's really important. That's something I've always been very careful about doing, and I continue to be very careful about making sure I'm working with the right people. I'm building relationships with the right people. That's super important. So don't just build relationships with anybody. I don't want to sound like I'm encouraging that at all. So then the next thing is I would just go bigger, faster, right? And again, I don't regret starting with 1 to 4 family. I think that's a great strategy. People ask me that all the time. Do you think you should have just started with bigger apartments? Well, no, because it wouldn't have worked for me, right? I wasn't comfortable doing that. I wasn't going to start with a 100-unit apartment building. I just didn't have that. So starting with 1 to 4 family was the way I needed to go. Right, it was doing flips, doing single family rentals, buying 10 to 20 unit buildings, and then finally growing and getting up into the 100 and 200 unit buildings. That's the path I needed to take, right? That path worked well for me. But I wish I would have learned and explored along the way and gotten there quicker, right? I if I could do it again, I would say, don't worry about making sure everything's perfect, right? Don't worry about making sure you know everything, because you're never going to know everything. When I thought I knew everything, I didn't really know everything. And I learned as I went still. And so don't worry about knowing everything. Take action. That's the most important part, is that you take action. You don't have to sit there and stall and wait until it's the perfect moment. You get there a lot quicker. So instead of it taking a decade or 10 years before I really stepped up my game. And I guess it wasn't quite that, 8 years. I would have done that a lot quicker. And I think that definitely is something I would encourage people to do. You got to take the right path for you. Maybe it is jumping in right away to that 100 unit or 200 unit or 500 unit, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's buying a single family house. Maybe it's buying a duplex. Maybe it's just doing a house hack, whatever it is. The most important part is that you actually do take action and that you continue to push your boundaries, continue to push your limits so that you can go and create bigger steps, right? Build that step up instead of plateau, instead of staying where you're at and being comfortable. So that's the other piece of advice I would say is, look, take action. Do what's going to make you take action. That's the most important part. But then always be uncomfortable. Always be growing. Always be expanding. And look, the other thing is, look, you need to know where you're wanting to go. If you don't know where you're wanting to go, it's going to be pretty hard to actually create that path, right? If you just want to have 40 units and make, $8,000 a month or whatever it is, well, great. Then that's all you need to do. That looks a lot differently than if you want to own a large company and create whatever you're wanting to create. For me, I want to build a large company. I want to be able to impact the world in a positive way. I want to do a lot. And so my goals are different than somebody that wants 40 units and $8,000 a month. There's nothing wrong with either goal. It's just you have to understand what it is, and you have to get out of that comfort zone to be able to make that happen. So those are kind of the 3 things I would say I would do differently. The other thing is, man, I've made some mistakes with not using attorneys, and that would be probably the other one. Don't try to do it yourself. Figure out who's an expert in, whatever you need to have an expert in, right? And use them, right? You use your team, use your attorneys, use your CPAs, use your property managers, use your team, and don't think you're going to do it all on your own by yourself, because you're going to make more mistakes. So that's definitely advice that I would give you. So, by the way, I'm sure some of you know we've got the North Star Real Estate Conference, and we're going virtual in October. We are going to do it live in April, and of course coronavirus hit, and we said, well, we're going to probably do it live in the fall, and of course coronavirus is still here, and I think a big group would be very difficult. So we are going to do a virtual event. I would love everybody to attend that. We're selling tickets to it. It's going to be more of an experience. So one of the biggest things we're going to be focusing on is relationship building. And I already said at the beginning, networking is super important. And I didn't say that to sell you on my conference, by the way. That's real advice. The conference is, tickets are on sale now. It's NREconference.com, and use the promo code DEX, DEX, and you'll get a discount to it. We are charging for it, but it's not very expensive. We want to see you there. We have amazing speakers. You can see a part of our speaker lineup on our website, but we're always constantly going to be getting more. And again, it's experience. So sign up for the North Star Real Estate Conference. Do it now. It's October 23rd and 24th virtual. We're going to be going live again. Hopefully 2021. We'll see where all this craziness takes us. Hopefully 2021 April. We'll be back live, but we're going to do it virtual now. So get your tickets, nreconference.com. I'm going to throw that in the show notes for you. Hey, let me know if you got anything you want me to talk about on these. I'd love to be able to cover the topics that you're interested, that you want to know about. Talk to you soon.